AI coding, vibe coding.
Vibe coding.
Yeah, I've heard it discussed briefly at work and then online, and I've tried it here and there, but obviously there is a cost to it depending on the tool that you're using and depending on how many questions you ask. And you can just ask things like ChatGPT or whatever AI LLM that you're using at the time, whether it's Bing or Copilot or whatever, or with obviously varying differences. But you've actually done a thing.
Yes. Yes, I have. So, for context, I started kind of coding little things for the contractor work that I do because there was just things that I needed to do and I didn't want to have to go in and manually edit files and update stuff and I didn't want to do that. So I usually used ChatGPT to do that for me. So I got them to do like build small like tiny Python scripts, which is a programming language to help facilitate that. Then recently, um,
Specifically, what were they doing?
I think I could probably say, but basically the Python scripts were taking an exported list of things, a CSV file, and
Hmm.
cleaning them up. So all it was doing was kind of removing like wrong formatting. So for example, like semicolons or stuff that shouldn't be there whenever they're being imported, um, is removed by me. And I set the delimiter, I set, which is the bit in between, and just changing, usually it's the tags that I'm importing for work.
Hmm.
And so I have something really simple, really
And that's
easy to
executed on
present.
your computer.
Yeah, so everything is local, so it's not AI driven. It was written by AI, but it's on my computer, so it doesn't have access to any information, which is always good, especially with my work. And then it exports it. I have another one which takes the list and divides it into random groupings of numbers. There's lots of different little tiny tools. And so what I did, I've got two tools, and now I've recently just combined those two Python scripts into one Python script, so that I can select it as an option. And so I'm building up this little tiny app that I'm just using to make my life a little bit easier, which is where it all started. Then, one of my clients that I do some work for started playing in a tool called Lovable, which is vibe coding all the way, which has like visual front end, back end, like both sides of the story. And I was a little bit excited. So I started playing my first idea. Um,
As I go to check what it was.
yeah, I can't remember what my first one was. It was something really cool, but it didn't quite work for what I wanted it to do. Let me have a look. That's right. So I wanted to build what I called the session seeker. So when people book coaching with me, they get a book of calls, like a block of calls. So the idea was is they can search their email. It then searches Kit to make sure, and it was originally I got it to be able to search Kit and find that they had a tag and how many sessions they had in their booking, which then told the app how many sessions they got, and it tracks how many sessions they've had. And then what it was meant to do, which I never got working, was then check my Google Calendar
Right.
to see how many sessions were booked from the first initial session. Then pass that information back to show when their next couple of sessions were coming off. So once again, I went for a big, not quite as big as what you went for,
Yeah, we'll get to that.
but still a fairly fair-sized app. It didn't work, and I was like, okay, fine. I don't have the time or the capacity or the energy to try and bug fix this right now, so I'm not going to bother.
Mm.
And that was like last month. Then a couple of days ago, I was building a freebie for an upcoming presentation and summit that I was going to be on. And I was like, I wonder if I could use, because I'm nearing up the month subscription, so I want to make sure that I use it if I can. I wonder what would happen if I tried to build this freebie, which was a role for perception. It's kind of a self-coaching tool with journaling prompts and all that lovely stuff. And I was like, well, what if I could build that for for the summit and this presentation? Because not everyone has dice. I've used a D6 so that it's easier to access. And for those who want to use real dice, they can use real dice and they can use the PDF version that I've got available.
Keep going.
And so I had that, and then I was like, I want to see if I could build just a very, very simple, like rollable dice. Or D100. Oh, it's like
Nah, it's
D100.
I can't, I think it's 128.
Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah. So I got this ages ago. I'm holding it up to the camera for those that are listening. But yeah, and it sits on my desk with all my other odd things. But yeah, I just sort of clocked. We've spoken about dice multiple times, and I have this, I think it's 128 rollable dice. That's 112. I'm looking for all the big numbers because it's mathematically evenly split, which is why I was like, I need to get this because this just
So
looks,
cool. I love it.
yeah, and it actually rolls. Like you can roll it and it will stop
Unlike
on a
an actual
number.
D100, which just never rolls very well and rolls for
You need a
everything.
very flat surface, and then when you look down at the dice, you have to be like right over the top. Otherwise, it's kind of
Yeah,
split
same with
between.
a D100. But yeah, so I was like, okay, cool, I need to build this. I want to try building a dice built-in one. Otherwise, they're searching the internet. And then, of
Hmm.
course, if these people are distractible and they want to be able to just get on with work, they're then more likely to find other rabbit holes to fall down with regards to dice, finding the right dice roller, whichever one is that, etc., etc. So I wanted to constrain the environment to have an actual dice so that they're there and they're present and it is just as easy as possible for them to get started. So I built that. I was like, cool, let's start that off. And I was like, oh, that rolls really well. And what if I was to put the prompts in that I had, which was a number of perceptive systems that people can use as prompting with like questions afterwards to help kind of go, okay, cool. What does this? What about this? How does this relate to this? Um, and it worked immediately, which was nice. Because it was so small, it just worked. And so I was then slowly able to add more things, adding in dark mode for those who like dark mode,
Me.
adding in a feature to twist, which is like another D4 table, which adds another constraint on top. So zooming in or zooming out, or like if you were talking to someone else, what would you say? Like all of those things just to add a little bit of spice into it and make it a little bit interesting.
Hmm.
And then I added a setting as when one of my friends tried it because I realized it's going really fast through all of the prompts. So for people who want to take their time, I turned on a slow mode where it shows each prompt once before it shows the next one, and they can hit continue to show each one. And then I was like, this is really cool. I wonder what else I could do with this. And then I was speaking to Esme. And Esme was like, "Why don't you could give this to other coaches and coaches could use this exact same system with their own prompts." And I'm like, "Oh,
Business opportunity.
oh, business opportunity, money. That would be good. That would be cool. How would that work?" And so I've literally started building the scaled up version of the app, which is my big project as I'm going. Um, and all from a thing of just like, this is interesting. I quite like how this might look. I wonder how this would work. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, my so the struggle that I have had ish is I enjoy coding, but I've not had well, I've not decided to set aside a few months to fully grasp and understand the ins and outs of coding because there is loads of it. There's loads of documentation, there's lots of nuances that you really need to grasp and understand to make something work effectively. So vibe coding was always something that was interesting to me because it would help me, I assumed, sort of get through the process of having something functional that I can test on and off. And that's kind of what I'm looking at this vibe coding for. I want to build something that's somewhat functional and then deconstruct it and be like, okay, how does this work? Why does it work? What has it done? And then I can further customize it, which is one of the reasons I use Excel, because I understand how Excel works. So I can go in and I can adjust an index max function, or I can adjust the way the pivot table is showing information, or the conditional formatting, or data validation. I can go in and I can fiddle around and do what I want with it. And when things change, which inevitably happens when like the business grows, you're like, oh, it was capped at 60. Now I need to go over 60, but the numbers don't allow that. So I need to change the formula. And that happens quite regularly with my trampoline business because yeah, it's good, but it adds problems. So one of the things that I was like that I've been looking for a good effective use is some sort of class booking system because online there are loads of class booking systems. Calendly has it, but it's multiple people in a session and it's on the calendar, which a lot of the people that I work with, they don't use calendars. So they're like, why am I booking a calendar meeting with you? Some of them book two or three people at once because it's a parent with three children. Or sometimes it's a parent bringing a family friend. So it wouldn't be one account, it would be two accounts, but someone would need access to the other parent's account, which obviously won't work with most calendar booking systems. So that's an issue. Or I rely on the parents to book the session in at the right time, which again is another struggle. So you need something that I have full control of booking their system for them, which Calendly, I can't book a meeting in for someone else. I'd have to invite them and then they would accept it, and that causes a load more fuss and faff. So nope. So the calendar plus group booking system, I don't think would work. Then you have the other side of it, which is what the current systems are. So Class for Kids is one that is very popular, um, uh, but they add all the bells and whistles on to the pricing. Don't get me wrong, there are free trial tiers and the rest of it, but I don't want to be locked into a system. So I try something for a year. Now I have X 100 people on here, and then I don't want to pay however much it is for the year because either we don't have the money for it, or I can actually do it in Excel. Why would I spend all this money for this system? And I don't need most of it. So when they say, oh, we can do payments on here, payments add transaction fees. Adding transaction fees either means the business soaks it up or the consumer has to pay for it. And our clientele aren't, they're not well off with money. We have deliberately made the pricing so that it's affordable for as many people as possible while still being sustainable. And so I don't want to add unnecessary fees onto the participants. So transaction fees I want to avoid, but it comes with the package of the system for the bookings. But then you also have emails. Well, I don't need emails because I use Substack for a newsletter if I need it, and then I have WhatsApp for all communication, which works great. So I don't need the email communication. I don't need the payment planning. I don't need the register. I don't need all of these other data analysis features because I have the data on Excel. I don't need a feedback form. I have that with Tallyform, which goes into Excel. I don't need all that. All I need is a booking system. And I don't want to pay 30, 40, 50 pound a month for a booking system. So, vibe coding. But with you're muted by the way. But with vibe coding, obviously that's a big ask.
Yeah, and I think that vibe coding is, I would love to sit and spend all the hours learning how to code properly. And I think I follow your suit of like um going in and deconstructing what I've made. I know enough about coding to be somewhat dangerous. And what I do love about Lovable, is the fact that I can turn on the code mode and then go in and edit stuff and change stuff. The only thing I've actually changed so far is one really simple thing where I have switched the the OG, like when you share a link, it goes straight to Lovable right now. And you see the Lovable kind of banner. I'm like, no, no, I want my banner. So I made a banner, uploaded it to my website, and put it on the page. And that was the only thing I've done so far. But like being able to then deconstruct it or giving it to ChatGPT and going, hey, look at this. What is this? How does this work? How does that work? Like, is a really nice way of learning on the go whilst also solving real problems that I have. Because that's the thing. Most of the time, I just want to solve something. Most of the time, when I start trying to code little programs or doing certain things, it's because I want to find a solution to something, and I don't want to be spending 6 months at this stage trying to learn how to code it from scratch, trying to fix all of the bugs, trying to solve all of the problems, and doing it all whilst trying to do my other work. It just didn't make sense to me. Whereas with vibe coding, it's a great place to get started with the idea, and sometimes it doesn't work. It gets stuck in a loop of errors. Usually, when you're trying to build something too big,
Me.
yeah, slightly, which is why I was really happy with Roll for Persuasion because it was small
Mm.
and it was small enough to be usable.
What I've actually found really interesting about the current project that I'm working with Lovable on is I asked it for a system, just one thing, but it's built out loads of other stuff on top of it that I didn't ask for. And I'm
Mm.
actually finding that I'm having to peel it back, sort of like I don't need that, don't need that, don't need like I could use that in the future, don't get me wrong. But at the moment I'm like, I don't need most of these things, get rid of those things, get rid of those things. I just want this one thing functional. And once that one thing is functional and I can understand how it works, just like we would in coaching or teaching anything, okay, here's the task. Can we get to the end goal? Yes. Right. Why did it work? How did we get there? How are the different ways we could get there? And that exploration is obviously where I'm at, trying to get to the end goal first and then exploring how or why it's working. And so Lovable has made the project bigger than I wanted it to be, but it's showing me the possibilities in the future. So I'm writing down all of these things, and I'm like, I could do this, and I could do that, and I could add this there, and I could add that there. But once I've understood how it works, so that if, as I mentioned to you in our conversation the other day, if something was to collapse, I still have full control and understand how it works. Whereas at the moment, I mean, I'm using WordPress, so I'm not expecting it to disappear. But if WordPress was to disappear or Elementor, for some reason, broke or crashed, my website would look like it was made in the 80s. Like, it would not look very appealing. And so
No.
having control whilst developing at the rate that Lovable is currently allowing me to do, it's nice. Obviously, money is a barrier, so I only have a certain amount of prompts because I'm not going to spend money because the whole point of me making it myself was to not spend obscene amounts of money to do something that I could make. DIY it, as they say. I like DIYing it because then I understand what's going on, but that's me.
Yeah, I started, I just wanted a tool to work. And so I upgraded fairly quickly when I used my 5 prompts because that was not enough for me to get where I wanted. And I really wanted to test to see whether I could get where I wanted on something. And I recognized, like, through what you were saying around if I start with the thing that I want and get to the end goal, and I think you could prompt and kind of preempt um, Lovable to focus on that. So it's like, get me to the minimum viable product, get me to the smallest possible outcome and results that I want to meet. Then we build on extra features. Then we build on additional things. And I think that might be the way I'm going to test like what I've got. As I continue to build new things, as I maybe try again with the session seeker thing, like I will build upon it over time, slowly, instead of trying to build the big thing straight away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's how we all develop skills. We start not with fundamentals, but with the end goal, the end point. Where are you trying to get to? A perfect example of this is actually something at trampoline the other day. One of the parents that was instructing their child on the trampoline to do a back landing, which is you land on your back and then you get back to your feet. They were talking about These are the words that the parent was using. Propulsion, direction, and stiffness of shape. That's what they were working on. But I asked the child on the trampoline, I said, so what's the goal? And the parent said these things. And so I said, so what are we trying to do? Are we trying to land on our back or are we trying to land on our bum? And they said, oh, we're trying to land on my back. Oh, okay, and then what? Oh, get to our feet. Right. So can you land on your back? Yes. And she could. And then it was like, okay, can you get back to your feet from there? Okay, what got in the way? Oh, my feet hit the trampoline. So how do you reckon we could? Oh, Google, go away. Um, so I was like, well, how could you not have your feet get in the way? And she said, put them up in the air. Try that. So she did. 2 or 3 attempts later, she's doing a back landing, 2 feet, which was the end goal. But she didn't have the propulsion or the force or the stiffness that the parent wanted, but she'd achieved the goal. And so it wasn't, oh, you need the fundamentals, because the fundamentals was you need propulsion. You need the rotation to go backwards and the rotation to go forwards. But that's an isolated part of this whole skill that we would say it's a back landing. You land on your back and you get back to your feet. Which, I mean, yeah, you could argue it's a fundamental, but that's where terminology and jargon can get complicated because everyone has different meanings, because meanings are in people, not words. But yeah, when
Yeah,
I'm looking at vibe coding and the projects that I'm building, I'm like, okay, what is the end goal? I want someone to be able to book a session that I have said is available and it be recorded on the backside.
yeah,
So that's all I need to start with. Yeah, we
yeah.
can work out the limits and the rest of it, but yeah, to start with, that's what I want.
Mm. And I think that's going to be really, I love it. I love it. It's such a cool way of working and a cool tool to be able to try things out. And then you can turn it into something bigger. You could hire a developer to actually make it work once you have something to start with, versus starting with hiring a developer who will charge rightfully a lot of money
Mhm.
to build it from scratch, but then you still don't really have anything to use for the first couple of weeks while they build it. Whereas with this, you have a testable, reusable, actionable tool that you can then go, cool. So here's what I built. Here's how I tried to expand it. Here's why it didn't work. Here's what I wanted to do. Can you do it? Yeah, sure.
Yep. And like again, for me, probably my DIY, I like my control of stuff, would want to become the developer of the thing because
Mm,
my big frustration from my experience with tools, I think this is why Notion and no-code builders is so big, is you know what's going on, you know how it works. But my big frustration is if you have a developer build a thing and the developer then disappears, or a new developer comes in, or something breaks and the developer doesn't understand it, you're now left with this thing that you don't really understand, which is what Notion templates are. A developer, Notion user, gives you a thing, and when it works, it's great. When it doesn't work, you haven't got a clue what's going on, so you have to ask the developer or someone else that knows to explain it to you so you understand how to change it or use it. And so I see getting a developer in to build something the same as downloading a Notion template, which
mm.
can be beneficial, but has limitations. So I'd much rather be the template builder, or in this case, the developer, um, than anything else. But obviously, that takes far more time, especially with a code base like, well, JavaScript, or Python, or TypeScript, or Java, or C++, or whatever code you're using. And that is where I like AI as an assistant.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the conversations around AI have turned into like AI bad, AI good, and
Hmm.
I don't think it's either.
It has its uses. It's just like any other tool.
It's another tool to use in your toolbox. If it doesn't work for you, don't use it. But if it does work for you, use it. Take advantage of the bits that you need it to do, and just understand its limitations. Is that it's going to not know everything, and it can't know everything, and you are the expert that you have more expertise than it ever could for most things, especially as it applies to yourself and what you need. And so once you know that, it's simple. Like that relationship becomes much easier because you use it for what you want to use it for and no more and no less. It can't do everything. It's not great at
A
you
lot of
can't
stuff.
yeah, it's not great at creating decent sized content that is of a standard that matches your voice all of the time. Especially when you don't work at it. If you work at it, you can get it pretty darn close. I got it to do something pretty cool yesterday, and I was quite shocked at how close to my voice it was. Still wasn't perfect though. I still need to play with it, and I will. But it can get you part of the way there, which I think is where, for me, the most value is because people are going to use AI because it's a shortcut.
Yep, that's why we use spell check.
Yeah, you could always go get a dictionary if you prefer.
Yes, exactly. You could look up the word in a dictionary to see if you spelled it right, but spell check is easier, it's quicker, so we use it. Same with I think. I must admit, I'm still using ChatGPT as a search because it is easier than Google or Bing. Like, I've tried using Google with the AI support, Gemini support, and I don't like it. Like, it gives me enough, but I still have to actually search the results. Bing I find is a bit better, but I still have to search a couple of results sometimes. ChatGPT, I don't need to search results. If there is something that I really need to like question, I can just ask it. I don't have to then research in the browser or go into a couple of the sources that it's linked to find out more detail. I can just ask it. And
I've
that to
been
me is a nicer
playing
experience.
I've been playing with ChatGPT because I have the paid version with their research preview.
Mm.
That's fascinating. That is very fascinating, especially as because what I was researching was ecological psychology and getting some papers and finding papers and seeing what papers it came up with. It came up with the very obvious ones, but then it came up with a couple I hadn't read, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I go find it and then I read it. You do still need to, because what it does is it paraphrases what's being said, which I'm like, I get why you're paraphrasing, and there is a time for paraphrasing. But
But
if I'm
not now.
looking up a paper, I want to know the actual science, please. Like what is being said in that paper. Don't paraphrase. And so I'll go look at the paper, find it, and then get the actual quote. Or I can just ask it to directly quote the paper. Don't paraphrase, and then it will find some direct quotes that match what I'm wanting to do, or what I'm trying to search, or what I'm trying to understand, or
So does it
etc.
have access to the academic papers?
Yes.
Interesting. I wonder how they've
And
done that.
I would assume they've probably just licensed it.
Yeah, but that's like extremely expensive. If you think about a paper, like one paper is £30. Like that's extremely expensive.
I assume so because it couldn't give me the exact paper, but it was quoting the paper fairly. Like when I
But
asked it to quote the paper, it wasn't
was
too
it the
bad.
paper or the abstract? I mean, if they're open access, then obviously
Yeah.
anyone can have it. So maybe it's looking for open access papers. That would make sense. And a lot of ecological psychology research is open access papers because most of the researchers in that field believe that science should be for everyone. Uh,
Mm.
which is one of the reasons there's actually less papers in ecological psychology because they're more expensive to publish, which is amusing. I see you're browsing,
Yeah, I was wondering whether it actually had it or not. I
and
have to
I
look that up
I
next
assume
time.
you actually double check the papers that ChatGPT is not making them up because it did used to
Yeah.
make them up.
Yeah, it's fairly good at not making them up now. Sometimes the name isn't quite right. It doesn't quite match that. But most of the time, when I'm using the 4.5 research preview, it is fairly good and fairly accurate. And it gives me quite a nice, concise summary of all of the pieces. I mean, I've trained mine to not give me concise summaries. So when I say concise summaries, it's not a concise summary. It is a detailed, like, summary of as much as it can fit into a page. Um, because I hate the way they summarize everything into tiny, small little blocks.
So
And it's yeah, cool.
something else that I was trying with ChatGPT was I went to a family last week, and the child is struggling with maths homework. I didn't go there to help with maths homework. I went there to build a house or garden house. Um, but I thought, actually, what if I took a picture of some complex maths? So I just did some simple maths on a notepad I had. I was like, one had one. I think it was like x plus y equals question mark. Like, what does it equal? And then like some other algebra. I can't remember. And I took a picture and asked ChatGPT to give me the answers, and it gave me the answers and explained it. I was like, okay, great. It can help the child with their homework. The family are also profoundly deaf, and they struggle reading lots of long-worded paragraphs because English isn't their first language. And so I took a picture of a letter, a long letter, and I asked ChatGPT to explain it in bullet points, and it did because it obviously just read the picture and explained it in bullet points. And that to me is practical application of making the world easier. Like, it's actually making the world understandable by whoever. And if they do have questions, they can then say, I don't understand this word. What does this word mean? And they can ask it and it will do it. The biggest limitation, though, is they're not technically savvy because they've grown up without technology because they don't understand most of the English that's used in technology. So asking them to use AI to explain how things work can be a bit of a struggle. Um, but I feel like there's a use case there to add accessibility.
And I think this is one of the big problems with all of the tools right now. Is that they're still very technically driven, not really minded for people who just aren't technical. And they're not doing a good enough job of explaining how it works and why it works. And so we're all busy here arguing over whether it's a good thing to use or whether it's a bad thing to use or how good it is and how bad it is and how wrong it is and how this is. But the thing is that everything's locked behind a paywall,
Yes,
which
most things are.
the average consumer is not going to bother looking because they just want to get an answer, and so they'll take what ChatGPT is saying as fact.
But people do that anyway with Google and social media. They look at something on
That's
social
true.
media, they see it two or three times, go, "Oh, okay, that's real." No, it's not. That's just what that particular person or generation or group of people are saying. With similar with what was on the news the other day in the UK anyway about Margaret Thatcher. People were saying that she was really bad, really negative, has a really bad history. I'm like, yeah, she made mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, but she also did a lot of good things as well. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she was the first female prime minister in the UK, which I think is a thing to celebrate just in its own right. Like, forget all the other stuff. Like, she actually got there, which was pretty impressive. Um, but the online narrative says one thing, and so the newer generation believe that one thing. I
Yeah.
am also part of that. I also believe certain things that I've seen online unless I go and research it further. But everyone is similar. It's like, need to do the research.
Yeah.
Churchill impression there. He's
Oh
got
yeah.
his yeah, yeah. He's got his own questionable past,
Yes.
Mr. Churchill, with his decision making, and he wasn't the best prime minister, but he did the job that he needed to do at the time, which is what everyone's going to remember him for. Well, most people remember him for. There was something on Loose Women. I think it was on Friday, and they were saying actually they might have been talking about Margaret Thatcher and Loose Women. I don't remember. It's on TV. Anyway, they were saying that a lot of people nowadays, everyone's life is sort of summed up in 60 seconds or less because it's like the length of a short or a reel or a TikTok. And they were sort of saying, how would you summarize X person in 60 seconds? And when I think about the majority of people now they would go to either the big negative things that have happened, because that's clickbaity, or the big positive things that have happened, because it's sensationalized. I'm like, yeah, but the person is more than just the good thing or the bad thing that they did. But it's not. We want a summary. TLDR that. You know, no. Give me an hour-long deep dive instead. See, you know what I mean. You're sitting there giggling.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree at all. It is so much more of just the shortcuts and the snippets and the all of the context is lost. because people just want to shout at each other.
Hmm. But that's where the vibe coding, I think, related to this conversation is. Like, vibe coding is the shortcut. But the I don't want to say the older people, but the people that are more understanding of the way that humans learn and the way that the future is, like moving forwards, is you've got to grasp and understand what's going on, how things work, why things work the way they do, so that you can move forwards. It's like when people learn to drive, are you learning to pass the test or are you actually learning to drive? Are you learning to pass the GCSE exam or are you actually learning the subject, the maths, the geography, the physics, the English, the whatever it is? Are you actually learning the subject or are you just learning to pass the subject? Vibe
Yeah,
coding, I think, is learning to pass the subject. It's learning to pass the test. It's learning to get the thing working. Great. Now, let's learn how to actually develop the thing so you can change it your own way. That's the bit I feel a lot of people may miss when it comes to vibe
yeah,
coding.
yeah, because it's so easy to do. But I do love the fact that I can turn it into code anytime I want.
Exactly. You
That
can
I think
see
is
the
one of my
background.
favorite. Yeah, I can see the background, I can see what it's doing, and I can work with it when I'm ready, when I want to play with it more.
Do you reckon vibe coding is no code 2.0? Because I liked
Yeah,
no coding. But I got frustrated when I didn't see the behind the scenes. Like when Notion removed the block IDs from being able to be seen, um, and when they started like adding more user experience friendly things like team spaces and all the other stuff they added a lot of feature bloat, is what I would describe it as. But it became more user friendly to those that didn't want to understand all the blocks and stuff that was going on behind the scenes.
yeah,
And the less blocky it became, the more generalized user app it became. But the less blocky, the less easy it is to understand. Like I had a Notion Pro template recently, and the properties are now hidden behind a layout view. And there's two different layout views, and you can lock the database, you can't edit it. And I'm like, you really have to understand how to get into the edit mode of Notion to be able to change things, which to me is making Notion go backwards, but that's because I'm a DIY person. I want to build it. Whereas vibe coding is kind of doing the opposite. It sort of says, hey, here's this front end thing, but let's go all the way back to the written code. Like forget the blocks and forget the no code element. Here's the code and here's the
mm,
product. So
yeah,
I feel like it's almost no code 2.0.
yeah. I think it is no code 2.0.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I think it could be because then it also is depending on how we decide to approach it. The way that I'm going to approach it the same way as you, so I'm going to try and dissect it and figure it out. And yes, it'll be no code 2.0.
It's almost like Notion formulas.
Yes.
But no, Notion formulas were where I spent my time in Notion, not because I liked coding or I liked formulas, but because it gave me the flexibility to do what I wanted. I want that number, that color, and that thing to show in this way if that, and if that, and if that. So I could see the weeks, the days, of when it
And I
was
wish they would
due.
have, and I wish they would have pulled it out and put it in its own on the page, like in like
Coda.
coded. That's
Yep.
so cool.
But with vibe coding, no code 2.0, we can do that. I haven't actually looked at vibe coding on YouTube. I haven't seen if there's a channel or thing going through it explaining it.
Oh, there is. There's loads.
I think Nat Eliason's done a course on it, of course. I don't think he uses Lovable though. I think he uses something beginning with C.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one. Current, is it current or is it
Yeah,
circuit or something like that? Yeah, so stupid one name word. I mean, lovable. Yeah.
Lovable's the same, yeah. Yeah, 'cause I was recommended Tiago's blog, and Tiago took Nat's course about vibe coding.
Ah,
And that's where I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, Tiago built a like life countdown thing. Yeah, productivity life countdown thing.
oh yes, because yay.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, so I might need to explore the lovable developer space when I get some time because um yeah, having three jobs and volunteering your time and also having a semi-social life is kind of hard to, have a hobby.
This is why I don't have a social life.
No, you
My
have a
social,
family instead.
yeah, yeah. Who I barely see.
Oh, you're like, hi family, I'm gonna do my thing now. Is that basically it?
Often, I do have Aiden coming in and watching me most of the time because he's kind of intrigued by what I'm doing. But yeah, pretty much. And then actually, a lot of my family time.
Social lifing is hard as a as an adult. Like not as a young adult. I'm talking like 23 below. I'm talking anything like 22, 23 upwards to probably like 40. It's hard to adult.
Yeah,
Everyone I've
I
spoken to in that age bracket is like, it's impossible to talk to people unless you work with them.
yeah. Especially in what because I work for myself. It's so hard to strike up the. I've tried with so my only social life is D&D and tabletop role playing game that's really about as social as I get. Um,
But it really is, unless you work with people, i.e., online, which is what obviously we talk online, or you're doing Zoom calls, team calls, Google Meets calls, whatever calls throughout the day. But that's not really like meeting up with people. It's not really social. And so the only way you can really be social is to find a sports club or group or activity. But who does that nowadays? Like you'd need to go to the gym. Who really wants to go to the gym? Like, let's be honest. I have a master's degree in strength and conditioning, and I don't go to the gym. Um, so where else do you meet people? Oh, I'm gonna go down to the pub, which most pubs are closing now because no one goes to the pub. We
and most
still
of the people who go to the pub seem to drink. At least in my area, I think it might be different for you, but yeah, it's just meh.
I'd probably say like 70% of the people in the pub, they go to the pub to drink and not remember what's going on. They don't go there to chat and socialize and talk with friends. Um, from my experience, most of the people at the pub are of the older generation that used to go to the pub when they were younger. They're not the younger generation. I say younger generation, my age. They're not my age going to the pub. They'll go to like a Weatherspoons, but they'll go to a Weatherspoons to have some food. They won't go to Weatherspoons just to like drink unless
Yeah.
they're going out afterwards. But when you're like older than 25, younger than 40, actually no, just older than 25, you're not really going to go to clubbing. Like you might see the odd people here and there, but you're not really going to go clubbing. So you're like, where'd you find people? Where'd you talk to people?
Most of the people that I talk to either have their own business
Exactly.
or I play D&D with them, and it's still very much we're playing this, we're doing that thing. There's not much else afterwards because there's not much to say. They start talking about how annoying their job is, and I'm just like, yeah, my job's annoying, but I work for myself, so I can do what I want. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that's a social conversation right there. Who wants to talk about that? Ugh. Sociology.
I like sociology.
Yeah, so do I, but who wants to listen to it? I actually, do you know of any sociology podcasts? I mean, I don't really know of many psychology podcasts that are large. There are just sort of generalized topics that are discussed, but
No, I actually don't.
because it's a fake science, pseudoscience. Yeah, I know. I get frustrated at that as well. It's not as easy to quantify.
Mm.
So there's no right and wrong answers. Unlike vibe coding, where you can say that works with the bracket there or not. Take the bracket out, it break. Or ask it to do something that's far too big and complex, it break. So yeah, just a tad.
Yeah.
Mm. Is there anything else you want to discuss about AI vibe coding or?
No, I don't think so.
No? Yeah, I might have a little bit of time to play now, so I might play. Yes. Right. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you maybe next week.
Bye.
I was about to click the end button then on the call instead of stop recording. Let's stop recording instead.